Hello, my name is Maurie Mulheron. I'm President of the New South Wales Teachers Federation. On Sunday, March the 11th, public education was ambushed in an attack on teaching and learning conditions not seen since the days of Metherill and Greiner. In a highly choreographed manoeuvre, the state government held a media conference at which the Premier announced the local schools' local decisions policy. The New South Wales Teachers Federation was not consulted on any aspect of the policy announced. Only one brief meeting had been held between the Federation and the Department on February the 9th, 2012, and at this meeting the senior officers of the union were told that the consultation period late last year had not thrown up any clear model. Indeed, upon further questioning, the Department officer admitted that even among principals there was an enormous range of opinions and no clear focus could be ascertained. So what is local schools' local decisions really about? Well, we know what it is not about. The Department posted a set of fact sheets on its website. It is a 5-page document. On page 1, the very first dot point refers to the total public school budget. It is not until page 4 that we see the first and the last mention of student learning outcomes. So what is it really about? It's about money, not students. The reality is that the consultation period late last year was never intended to shape the policy announced. The policy had been predetermined, and the evidence for this is in a range of legislative changes as well as policy and expenditure review documents. Local schools, local decisions only make sense when it is considered in the broader context of the state government's agenda. These documents provide the detail so sorely lacking in the Department announcement. It is important for everyone working in public schools to understand that the policy had been announced well before the consultation period last year. The government plans to reform government schools by giving them more authority to make local decisions that better meet the needs of their students and the communities. Who said this? The Education Minister? No, the State Treasurer. When? September last year, when he brought down the state budget. But under what heading does this quote from the Treasurer appear? It appears under the heading, Delivering on Structural, Fiscal and Economic Reform. The same budget papers reveal the extent of the cuts. In last year's New South Wales state budget, the Treasurer announced that the state government over the next 4 years will cut $10 billion from the state budget. In his budget speech, the Treasurer also announced the loss of over 5,000 public service positions. So far from being educational reform, what was announced on March the 11th by the Premier is the actual structural change that will deliver the cuts. Instead of the cuts being made centrally with the risk that the New South Wales government will anger the community, public school principals are having devolved to them the responsibility to deliver the savings on behalf of Treasury. And in the state budget papers, the Treasurer complains that the mechanisms to achieve the savings have not been put in place. Local schools, local decisions is now the mechanism that the Department, at the behest of Treasury, is seeking to impose. As well, the budget papers reveal that performance agreements of all Directors General of State Departments must include delivering savings to the government. The delivery of agency saving plans is underpinned by the accountability of agency management for delivering their budgets. The Premier will enter into performance agreements with each Director General which include budget management as a key deliverable. So, as the Department claims, if 70% of its budget is devolved to schools and the Department is bound by contract to deliver savings, where will they come from? We need to break down where the $10 billion cuts are going to be made. Procurement, so-called efficiency dividends, that is spending cuts, redundancies, cutting programs and the salary freeze that has been imposed on you all. But we need to recognise that the central thrust of local schools' local decisions is staffing. If the government can create a cheaper teaching workforce, the savings will be secured, because at the heart of local schools' local decisions are staffing levels and their cost to government, the number and mix of staff, the incremental pay scale, permanency, the number of promotion positions, release time and class sizes. So now we need to turn to another government document that should be read in conjunction with local schools' local decisions, the New South Wales Commission of Audit, Public Sector Management Report, released by the state government in January this year before school went back. It has, as its ideological underpinning, the notion that managerial prerogative should override any awards or agreements. This is revealed on page 83 of the report. The Commission of Audit agrees that some management workforce policies and input controls are managerial prerogatives and should not be incorporated into awards. Examples are teacher-to-pupil ratios. And of course, we should remember that it is not just in education that staff-related savings will be secured. As you can see, it goes to other areas of the public service. The next two documents also exposed that the consultation period was a sham, as they were leaked to the media and came to the possession of the Federation by a concerned Treasury figure, a whistleblower, 12 months ago. So concerned was he or she of what the Department of Education and the State Treasury were planning. Those that commissioned these reports still hold office. The same individuals are behind the local schools' local decisions policy. Indeed, the language in local schools' local decisions contains language that is almost direct quotes from these two documents. The first is the Boston Consultancy Group report, no relation to former Director General Ken Boston. Boston Consulting is a large American firm specialising in corporate management and finding savings for companies and governments. It has branches in 42 countries. The second review by Pricewaterhousecoopers goes to employee-related costs. The Boston Expenditure Review undertaken by Treasury of the DEC has as its framework the need to use devolution as the means to achieve savings of between $500 to $700 million in recurrent funding. The major focus of the report is to shift the New South Wales system to the devolved Victorian level of cost per student, which would save New South Wales $780 million. In perhaps the most cynical move ever perpetrated by department officials, certainly in my 34 years with the department, they established the 47 school trial and deliberately inflated the funding to quarantine as an experiment how money could be saved. They even costed the savings, and their strategy is revealed in the secret document. Test and measure the impact, but make sure the concept is bought. Make sure it is accepted by providing additional resources only for the life of the trial. The concept has to be accepted, so assess the risks and put in place any mitigation strategies to manage any opposition. And the Boston Expenditure Review deals with every cost to the department, including class sizes. Smaller class sizes in New South Wales are too costly. You will recall my earlier reference to the Commission of Audit. School budgets, the first dot point of the local schools' local decisions document. Savings apparently are not currently captured, so there is a need to remove money from school budgets where money can be saved. Bundling maintenance and cleaning. Again, the 47 school trial is being used to model potential savings. And devolving to principals the responsibility to manage the cleaning and maintenance of their schools could provide further savings. It is called, not too euphemistically, devolution of work prioritisation to principals. School closures, another extraordinary cynical and deceitful strategy. Everyone knows how apprehensive communities are about school closures, but the Department and Treasury Commission report says that to manage opposition, schools closures should be promoted as a school regeneration or building schools for the future program. Does it get any more dishonest than that? And we suspect that the DEC is currently compiling a list of schools that may be targeted for future closure, according to media reports. The other important document that needs to be studied in conjunction with the LSLD document is the Pricewaterhousecoopers report, School-Based Employee-Related Costs Review. This review provides not only the ideas for local schools, local decisions, but the actual language, almost the direct wording, direct lifts. PricewaterhouseCoopers reports of overstaffing in schools, the need to reduce nominated transfers, revise the staffing formula, and argues that when appointing principals, currently there is far too much emphasis placed on educational leadership. It reports the need to set greater levels of accountability for principals, and that increased empowerment will deliver educational benefits, but more importantly, material cost savings. The selection criteria must focus on commercial management capabilities, increased levels of commercial acumen to improve the performance of individual schools. if the Director General's contract mentions delivering cost savings to government as a key performance indicator, what accountability measures are in store for principals when they are made to manage 70% of the department budget? Every major point in Pricewaterhousecoopers is mentioned in the local schools' local decisions document. Management credentials, casualisation, loss of permanency, loss of promotion positions, a range of staffing issues and loss of transfer rights. In this proposed deregulated world where market forces will apply, we know that some schools will lose even more than others. This is no more highlighted than in the area of staffing, where the loss of transfers should be seen alongside the loss of permanent teaching positions. There will be no flexibility. Schools will be forced to rob Peter to pay Paul. Flexibility will not be achieved by cashing in positions or moving money around one or two buckets, or as the Minister revealed, trading in a deputy principal to employ a speech therapist. True flexibility is achieved with additional resourcing. If students need access to a speech therapist, then provide the additional funding. The notion that a combination of enrolments and curriculum will determine the staffing mix will cease when the staffing bucket of money is devolved to schools. Principals will be forced to make some very tough decisions as the staffing budget will become the main determinant in how schools are staffed. Under the state austerity measures, this will shrink over time. The department has confirmed that a permanent position can be filled in perpetuity by a temporary teacher. This measure alone is designed to produce enormous dividends to Treasury as more expensive permanent teachers are denied a position, while cheaper temporary teachers are offered short-term contracts. Local schools, local decisions is designed to accelerate the casualisation of the teaching workforce. It is strange that the same people who parrot "one size doesn't fit all" attempt to fit our system up with a failed devolution model imported from overseas. Julia Gillard, who launched the Empowering Local Schools policy, is enamoured of what is happening in New York. Well, I spent some weeks in New York last November visiting the autonomous charter schools. I recall the visit to a charter school in the Bronx where the principal told me of his choice to either keep current class sizes or purchase textbooks. He decided to delete all funding for textbooks. And the actions of Mayor Bloomberg show how hollow a politician's assurances are. 5 months after Mayor Michael Bloomberg outlined a plan to give principals more autonomy to run their schools, the city imposed what would be the first of 5 consecutive cuts to the school budgets. The era of austerity has turned the notion of principals' autonomy into a recurring exercise in deciding what to do without. And this is what faces New South Wales principals. And closer to home, Victoria. Victoria has the most devolved system in Australia, but it has 7,500 fewer teachers than New South Wales, 1,500 fewer support staff than New South Wales, and yet it is a system very similar in size to New South Wales. There is an increasing body of research evidence that contradicts assertions made that school autonomy delivers improvements, and the department has never made any of the research available. The OECD, in its 2009 PISA cross-country correlation analysis, found that greater responsibility in managing resources appears to be unrelated to a school system's overall student performance. School autonomy in resource allocation is not related to performance at the system level. Indeed, the only areas where increased autonomy did correlate to improve student performance were in curriculum development and assessment. But these are the 2 areas where increased centralisation has occurred in recent years: national testing, a national curriculum, and a reporting system that empowers teachers locally to use, out of 250,000 words commonly used in the English language, to use just 5 letters of the alphabet, A, B, C, D or E, to report on student outcomes. What is also clear from the research is that the more resourcing and staffing function are devolved to the school level, the greater the threat to equity of student outcomes within and between schools. Devolution is not, in itself, grounded in education theory. It originated as an economic theory some decades ago to be applied specifically to public sector management. It achieved prominence during the Reagan-Thatcher era, was embraced by conservative political parties and pretenders, and has been promoted for years by large corporations, including interventionist media companies such as News Limited. Little surprise, then, that the Daily Telegraph can triumph. We do note that these changes only came about by constant pressure from this newspaper. In many respects, the Daily Telegraph is telling the truth. The devolution narrative goes something like this. Governments should be small. The public sector is wasteful. The public service is bloated. Spending must be reduced. Budgets must be balanced. Corporate tax should be cut. And public utilities should be privatised wherever possible. And if it cannot be privatised easily, such as in public education, then secure the cuts by devolving the budgets to the local level. It can be applied to public hospitals as well, and has been. Let the managers at the local level wear the responsibility for any budget shortfall. The closing date for the expressions of interest for empowering local schools was Friday, March the 9th, and the local schools' local decision announcement was 2 days later. A coincidence? Any expression of interest should be seen now for what it is, a signature on a blank contract with the details to be provided later. No government embarks on such massive changes without having a fully costed proposal. Why are the costings being kept secret? The government policy announcement demonstrates it intends to retain centralised control over school budgets, the revenue-raising side, whilst fully devolving responsibility to principal to deliver budget cuts. In future, it will not be the minister who is held to account. The school principal will be the one to be apportioned the blame and the shame when things go wrong.